Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Prosper Portland. My name is Amanda Park, and you are at the Cannabis Business Development Equity Program RFP info session. And thank you for being here. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We have some handouts on the table there. You can sign in at the front table just outside the door. We have some coffee and water available, and restrooms are just out these double doors to the left down the hallway. We're going to go through the RFP here in just a couple minutes. I just want to introduce myself. Again, Amanda Park at Prosper Portland. I'm the project coordinator for the Entrepreneurship and Community Economic Development team. And I'm here today with Tori Campbell, manager of the Entrepreneurship and Community Economic Development team, as well as Claire Adamsick from Commissioner Fritz's office. I'm going to just run through what we have in store for you today. We're going to talk a little bit about how this program came to be and why it's here at Prosper Portland. We're going to also share with you how to use Slido, the technology that will be fielding questions throughout the event. In case you didn't know, this info session is going to be live streamed so that folks can join us remotely and get their questions answered as well. From there, Claire is going to share with you a little bit about the cannabis tax allocation process and a little bit of history about how we came to this point. And then I'll come in at the end with a review of the RFP. We'll talk about the Inclusive Business Resource Network, how these things work together, and then we'll take questions. All right, so getting started, I'm going to hand it over to Tori Campbell.
Thank you, Amanda. How's everyone doing this afternoon? All right, that was very enthusiastic. Appreciate that. This is going to go quite well based on your enthusiasm. But no, we appreciate you being present, both here in the space and obviously those that are viewing this online. Again, as Amanda mentioned, my name is Tori Campbell, and I manage our entrepreneurship and community economic development teams in our portfolio in terms of the work that we do in the city. And I just want to take a few moments to, one, talk with you about the ways in which you will be able to interact with us in terms of fielding your questions and hopefully having, at the end of this, an opportunity for some Q&A. And I'm also talking for those who are going to be watching us live over the internet. You'll also have an opportunity to participate in terms of submitting questions. And so we're going to be doing this using a technology that we've used in several other community meetings and forums that has proven so far to help us in terms of providing just another opportunity for individuals to both be heard, for some collective consensus around major themes to percolate to the top, and also a way for us to capture any and everyone that has something to say, but perhaps in this space and time we're just not afforded the opportunity for that question to be answered. This allows us to gather all of that, synthesize it, find major themes, and then provide a frequently asked question white paper that we can put out over the next few weeks. So the technology we're going to be using is called Slido, and if you have a phone, you can go onto the website. It's www.slido.com. When you get onto that website, and I would actually encourage you to at least take a peek at it if you haven't already. It's a really great tool. When you get on there, you're going to just put in the hashtag CBDRFP. Oh, there's some instructions. Sorry. Voila, there it is. So you'll get on there, and once you see the platform, you put in the hashtag CBDRFP, then that puts you on our particular Slido platform, of which we've provided some survey questions, and then there's an additional tab that actually allows you to submit questions. The way it works is it's pretty straightforward. Type in a question. We'll be able to monitor that. When we get to the Q&A section, we'll begin to use those as jump-off questions to get the ball rolling. Probably one of the cool things about Slido is that if you see a question that's on there that resonates with you, maybe they said it slightly different, or you're like, that's exactly how I would have asked that question, rather than you submitting a new question, just hit the like. And typically how Slido works for us, for the benefit of this exercise, is those questions that are kind of percolating to the top as major themes, we'll start with those questions along the way. And again, like I said before, if for some reason we're not able to get to your question, we now have it captured, and we'll follow up in future days if we feel like it's a strong enough theme, and we'll respond to it in a frequently asked question packet. Also, the other two ways that we are wanting to have questions submitted is via Twitter. Again, you can use the hashtag within the Twitter feed of hashtag CBDRFP. And if all that is just too much for you today, you're like, I just feel like being a little old school, which is all good. You can grab one of these cards. It says your question. If you haven't seen them, you can just write it down, and we'll have some staff that'll stand up and they can collect those, and we'll bring those up to the front. We'll also try to incorporate that into the Q&A. But as you can see, we're trying to make enough efforts, both for you here and also for those that are watching live, for you to feel like you can be an active participant and have your thoughts captured both in the moment, but also for posterity that we can respond back to in future days. But that being said, welcome. It really is a pleasure to be here. And I want to take a few minutes just to talk about why this program is important to Prosper Portland. There's several things that come to mind when I think about this work. A lot of it stems from the work that Prosper Portland is already doing as it relates to helping small businesses throughout our city. We currently have our Inclusive Business Resource Network, which provides light and intense small business technical assistance to over 600 small businesses throughout the city. And I think many times people just don't realize that that work is already happening, helping folks with the basics of business planning, to figuring out their accounting systems, to how to get into new markets, how to develop their marketing strategies, to how to access meaningful capital along the way in your business phase and cycle. So that's something that we are already doing. We do it in a network form, meaning we work with 11 amazing partners and many others who also come in and do that work directly. So a lot of our role is about convening, connecting, and helping to ensure that best practices are being deployed throughout our city to ensure a vibrant, economic environment throughout the whole city. And I think that that's something that we feel like this can be readily incorporated into, and a lot of what we've learned there we can apply. So that's kind of the what we do. But I would say even more important, why do we feel like this work is kind of right in our lane, is the why. For many of you, you may not be aware, maybe you have. One of our strategic plans, kind of the main core of that cornerstone of the work that we do in terms of supporting small businesses in the city, has been really with an eye on equity. We've done a very long look back in our city, and we've clearly seen the ways in which our city has grown. It's been a boom town for many small businesses, but yet when you tease out who has benefited, historically we have seen particularly entrepreneurs of color and women being underserved and underrepresented. And so over the last few years, so much of the work that we've been doing, where we're working with 600 to 700 businesses throughout the city, from retail all the way to high growth startup founders and tech environments, all those individuals, many of them are entrepreneurs of color and women. And so we feel like our work is not only just grounded in doing good work to support businesses, but it's also framed around how do you do this work to support the least of these, or those that have been overlooked, that are resilient, that are innovative leaders, that if not given space and then brought into the larger community conversation of what does it mean to be a vibrant and energetic bootstrapping entrepreneur, we lose as a city big time. And so much of this work is grounded in that very real tenet of doing work that is equitable, that really benefits all. And so Prosper Portland, not from a place of gloating, but from a place of this is just what we should do when we say that we are the economic arm of the city. Our work should truly support all those that call Portland home, and particularly business owners. And so we feel like when we heard about the cannabis conversation and the tax dollars that would be allotted to support businesses in this work, we thought, man, we would love to be a part of this conversation. Hence, we are here today talking to you, and we look forward to the conversation ahead, what the RFP calls out, and the ways in which it's trying to support that work. So without further ado, I'm going to invite up Claire, who's been along for the ride as a major supporter and driver of this conversation, and has really been a great partner. And she's going to share a little bit more of the role that she has played in her representation of Commissioner Fitt's office. So at this time, Claire.
Thanks, Tori, and thanks everybody for being here. It's exciting to see a strong turnout. Hi, and you are here because of you, in that you are most likely, or at least some of you among the voters who supported this ballot measure to pass in 2016, which allowed the city of Portland to implement to collect a 3% tax on recreational marijuana sales. It was a local, without going into too much detail, it was a local option that jurisdictions that had supported Measure 91 by more than 55% could opt and refer to voters, which is what City Council did under Commissioner Fritz's leadership in 2016, and then voters passed it at, I think, around between 60 and 70% in 2016, late 2016. So that took effect the following year, and so what we're working with currently are revenues that the city gained from the calendar year of 2017. And while we were putting together the ballot measure language, and it's also part of city code language, the city council and Commissioner Fritz in particular worked with representatives from the cannabis industry to look at what were some of the areas that both could go to benefiting sort of essential city infrastructure with some connections to drug and alcohol use, as well as go directly back to supporting unmet needs in the industry that weren't necessarily being addressed, that were being addressed, but not specifically by the regulatory program, the licensing program, as the city was bringing that together. So that was kind of happening at the same time. So, so those three funding areas, sort of general areas that were identified, were one area is drug and alcohol education and treatment. The other area is public safety investments to reduce the impacts of drug and alcohol abuse. And the third area, which is this area, that relates to this area, is support for small businesses, specifically women and minority-owned, and in particular with a focus on support and opportunities for people from communities who have been disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs, by cannabis prohibition. So from that, moving into last fall, there was a steering committee that had community representatives from cannabis business owners, from people on the criminal justice and advocacy side, from workforce development, jobs training programs, that came together to kind of work within that third funding area. The Council of the Tax Revenues allocated $500,000 for this current fiscal year to go to that area of both business development as well as record clearing and workforce development opportunities for folks previously incarcerated and trying to enter the workforce. So that part I just mentioned is currently in the midst of a grant selection process, which hasn't been finalized, but will be finalized soon and announced soon, probably within the next few weeks, to go to folks who are focused on either or the record clearing side of things, record expungement, ancillary charges, addressing some of those pieces, as well as folks who are supporting workforce development opportunities for previously incarcerated individuals or individuals who are unhoused and otherwise needing extra support in that area. And so we can get into more details of this grant, which is what is next. So, so that's basically the city. We hand it off to our partners at Prosper Portland, who have, to leverage the relationships, the great relationships that they have and have been developing in the business community, generally speaking, with emerging entrepreneurs, with businesses owned by communities of color and women, and are excited for their partnership in this project. So that's a brief synopsis. If you have other questions related to this, happy to answer them. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Tori and Claire, for sharing a little bit of background about the RFP. So I think we can get started on the actual program here. I think what we'll do is we'll start with an overview of the Inclusive Business Resource Network. Okay, thank you. Because this program will work with that network. So for those of you that didn't pick up a flyer, please make sure you get one. And like Tori mentioned, the network is really 11 nonprofit organizations, plus it's growing. So we're adding more partners as we go along that support entrepreneurs of color anywhere from I just have an idea to I'm ready to scale up and take this national or international. Those partners work in different communities around Portland, and within that network, they're able to leverage each other's resources to really provide the best and most thorough support for entrepreneurs. We're really looking at this as a no wrong door approach. Key to the network is a group of business navigators that are working with community organizations and go out into the community to speak with folks and let them know about what is available and the support that's out there. So the cannabis program, the Cannabis Business Development Program, that is an area that this network hasn't addressed previously. And now with its legalization and the development of these grant funds, we're able to bring the cannabis industry into the loop. And so we're hoping that with this RFP, that not only will the folks that are awarded the RFP be able to access the network, but the network will also be able to access the expertise of that organization. All right. So quickly, I'm just going to do a really high-level run-through of the RFP itself, and then we'll just jump right into questions. I think that's probably why you all are here. So we do have $150,000 budget for this program. $100,000 of that is allocated towards business technical assistance. There's an additional $50,000 that will be given to whomever wins the grant process to distribute as many grants to small businesses. I think I said that correctly, but I'm sure there will be questions about how that will work. So we're hoping that the awardee will be able to provide outreach to cannabis businesses as well as provide one-on-one technical assistance. And we, trust in you all being the experts in this industry and knowing how that needs to happen. So we look forward to reading about your proposals. Other requirements for this particular opportunity include joining the Inclusive Business Resource Network. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of opportunity to, one, mainstream the cannabis industry by including it in the network and sort of disseminating the knowledge that you all have with folks that are already working with small businesses, and vice versa, being able to provide small business support for cannabis entrepreneurs. You will work closely with the two other the Office of Neighborhood Involvement and the Bureau of Development Services to help cannabis entrepreneurs navigate different permitting and licensing requirements. Part of the Inclusive Business Resource Network, we have a community of practice that meets every month. And with this community of practice, there's a lot of resource sharing, networking, and just staying up to date with what's going on in the entrepreneurial landscape in Portland. Part of the community of practice is also participating in committees. So we have several different committees, and whoever's awarded this RFP would also join the Cannabis Business Development Committee. So in that committee, you'd be working with other folks in the network to share what you know and kind of field questions that they might have and build an even stronger program. You'll be required to report quarterly on your progress serving clients and how many hours you're working with them, as well as an annual report and progress towards the milestones that you've achieved. And the milestones are in Appendix A, which I recognize was not included when the RFP was released. So that will be posted up on the website as well as online on our social media, different social media platforms. You can get a paper copy of that here on the table, and we're hoping to have it available for folks that are watching from home so you can see what we're referring to. Those milestones include helping businesses become strong and stable, helping them to grow, helping them to scale, or helping them to get ready to launch, and that's more looking in more of a startup scenario. Proposals will be evaluated in the 6 different categories. I'm going to run through those, but so you know, there's the overview, equity and cultural competency, experience and expertise in working with entrepreneurs and small business, cannabis industry expertise, capacity and outcomes, and partnership and collaboration. So for the program proposal and overview, what we're really looking for here is a high level of the program that you're proposing. A lot of this is left sort of up for you to develop what you think is best for the industry and for the support that folks need. So get creative, be innovative. It's a new field, it's a new industry. it's a new legal industry. So, you know, like we are all entrepreneurs in this area. We all need to innovate. We're really excited to see what you can come up with. Next, for the organizational equity and cultural competency section, we're really looking for an understanding of the challenges that face folks that have been disproportionately impacted by the prohibition of cannabis, and how your understanding of that and how you feel you can best support entrepreneurs navigating that. Experience and expertise working with entrepreneurs and small businesses. Again, it's a small business development program, so it's good that you know how to support businesses. Cannabis industry expertise. Now, this is where the network, the Inclusive Business Resource Network, has a gap, and we're really looking to whomever is awarded this grant to be able to bring that industry expertise into the network. Capacity and outcomes. So just for your knowledge, we have an outcome tracking software that we use right now. So reporting would be done quarterly using that platform. Partnership and collaboration, and this is really, I think, speaking again to what I had mentioned earlier with the Inclusive Business Resource Network. It's a community of practice that comes together, and those organizations really work with each other, refer to other organizations, and so we're looking for a candidate that can work collaboratively in that environment. Then, I mean, that's the high level. I've got, let's see. Do you have to be registered in the city of Portland? I think this is probably referring to if the business needs to be registered in the city of Portland. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I would say that at the end, if you were an end recipient of this program, you would need to be registered in the city of Portland. Okay, and then I had a question earlier about describing a cohort model. So what we found in working with entrepreneurs is that a lot of they're most successful when they have a wide network of support, and business cohorts really provide that. Not only are they able to work with a business advisor, but they have access to other businesses that have experience working in that similar field. So they have a built-in network of support working in a cohort. So that's what that is alluding to. And then, Morgan, actually, are there questions in the audience? And we need to use the mic just because we're live streaming.
Any takers? I need to stand up. No. Okay. Are you guys looking for one candidate for this tax allocation or a few?
We're open. I think probably no more than two, just given the amount of the grant size.
Okay.
Can you further describe the Access to Capital program that you're outlining here?
Yeah, so there's $50,000 that the Cannabis Tax Steering Committee, actually let me rewind. The Cannabis Tax Steering Committee was a group that convened late 2017, and they sort of identified some priorities for how this money should be spent. One glaring gap in the cannabis industry right now is access to capital. And so with the funds that we had available, $50,000 has been allocated towards providing grants. And so the access to capital is in respect to this RFP, is access to those grants.
Hello, my name is Jorge Guzman. You mentioned collaboration for this RFP. Are those organizations that would be partners, would they be part of the actual application, or are you looking for more of letters of support, kind of testifying to the expertise of that organization?
Yeah, great question. So with the RFP itself, you don't need to have a partnership agreement with all 11 organizations or any necessarily. But what we're looking for is your demonstrated ability to work collaboratively. It could be with other communities, organizations. It could be some of the nonprofit organizations that are already in the network.
Hi. I was going to, with, small business and startups and small businesses, the main reason why they fail is undercapitalization. So $50,000, is that going to be enough to sustain, is that sustainable for a small business within their first, during their infancy?
Yeah, probably not. And we recognize that $50,000 is not enough and that the mini grants will not sustain a startup. But we also know that $5,000 to an entrepreneur that's trying to get started can really help out if it's, purchasing your paying for a designer to do the plans for you, getting some marketing done, going for legal support, whatever it might be. We know it's not everything, but we know it also can help. So also, just to add to that, I think you brought up a good point about like a startup. We know that $5,000 can impact a business differently depending on the stage of where they're at. And so in the proposal, we also ask that you indicate which stage business that you feel you would best target, knowing that the grants are, maybe up to $5,000.
Hi. Just to piggyback and to build on what you guys are saying, who came up with the philosophy or the idea to allocate $100,000 towards technical assistance versus $50,000 to access the capital? Based on everything that you just said and the gentleman said here, that's the biggest need. So where did that philosophy come to for that allocation?
Sure. I think because of the size of the grant, we knew that to provide adequate support in administering that grant and business technical support around that, if we allocated less than $100,000, you wouldn't have enough money to pay a person to help the business. If that, no. Do you have a follow-up?
So you're saying $100,000 is allocated to help another business? $100,000?
$100,000 is to help another business?
One person, two people to provide.
Oh, yeah. So that $100,000 would ideally be for one or two people to serve 5 or 6 businesses. So we're like the mini grant is not everything, but it's something, and it comes along with up to 40 hours of one-on-one technical assistance. So we're hoping to address 2 things, knowing that the pot is not huge. Like, how can we best use this funds for the greatest impact for businesses?
So are you saying that 100,000?
Sorry. Thank you.
Are you saying the 100,000 is paying for PDC's staff?
No.
I mean, okay.
No. That's all granted out to maybe one of you in the room or somebody watching at home.
Okay. No, I think you answered mine. So the 100,000 is going to be given to somebody in here to support, to give technical support.
Yes.
Then we can utilize the 50,000 to help whichever entrepreneurs are going to be utilizing it for the business.
Precisely. And I encourage you to be creative in the mini grants that go along with the technical support, because we know it's not a lot. And so we're hoping to get some innovative ideas about how to best use those mini grants.
Okay, and just quick follow-up. So on July 15th, grant effective date, that's when it'll be available to the public or whatever entrepreneurs need access to that grant? Is that?
Well, I think in a perfect world, yes, but I'm assuming that it will take probably the organization that's awarded some money or some time to ramp up and be to structure how they're going to award those mini grants.
So I know Process Portland works pretty close with a small legal clinic. Will there be also resources for perhaps those entrepreneurs that need help expunging some of their records? Have you thought about that? And would there be a collaboration there with the small legal clinic?
Well, so the Small Business Legal Clinic is not able to work with cannabis businesses. So we're hoping with the formation of the cannabis committee within the community of practice that we can determine what we need to be able to provide entrepreneurs to supplement them, knowing that other resources aren't available. As far as the expungement, I think Claire had mentioned briefly earlier that part of this cannabis tax allocation was reserved for expungement and record clearing. And working closely with them, I'm sure that we can help provide those resources to businesses that want to be a part of the program. And I think there was a question over here. No? Yeah. Sorry, just one second. Because we're streaming live, we have to get all the questions on the mic.
I don't mean to belabor this point, but I just want to make sure I'm on the same page about the grant allocation. Okay, so it says that the city of Portland is going to grant $150,000 to 1 or 2 successful applicants, but you also referred to mini grants. Can you help me?
Sorry, in the mic. Could you say it again?
The whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay. I just need a little, make sure I'm on the same page regarding clarification on the allocation of the funds. So when I read this, it says there may be 1 or 2 successful applicants will receive $150,000. And then you also refer to mini grants. Can you help me understand where the mini grants are coming from? So, because I read the 100,000, is the 150,000 a separate allocation from the $100,000 of the cannabis tax resources as well as the additional 50K? Or is that the equivalent?
It's the equivalent, and I know this is confusing, so I'm going to explain maybe a different way and see if that helps. There's $150,000 available for 2 organizations to support businesses. Part of that money is also meant to provide grants out to businesses. This RFP right here is not necessarily for cannabis businesses. Does that?
It's to assist.
It's to organizations that can support cannabis businesses. Yeah.
So can you give us an example of such businesses that would support?
That might apply for this particular RFP. It could be a organization, a nonprofit organization that works with cannabis businesses. I don't want to name names. It could be a consultant that is well networked and understands the cannabis industry. They might apply for this fund.
Okay. So cannabis businesses, small businesses that are looking for grant funds would not apply to this particular funding round.
That's right. So cannabis businesses that are looking for support should stay tuned because there will be resources available for you sometime after July 15th. But right now we're looking for community organizations or nonprofit partners or consultants that can provide support for cannabis businesses. So we're one step away from being able to work with the cannabis businesses.
Okay. Thank you. That was helpful.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
One up here.
The consulting firm, if it's a cannabis consulting firm, is that adequate?
Yes.
Okay. And the second one, about the people that you grant to, does the business have to be 100% minority owned?
For the mini grants?
Whichever.
Oh, that hasn't been determined.
Okay.
Okay, several questions. Well, someone up here? Come back.
Do you anticipate that the partners you choose to, the organizations you choose to partner with will provide both the technical assistance and the administration of the Access to Capital program, or could that potentially be split as far as responsibilities?
The way it's in the RFP right now, whomever gets the technical assistance grant would also administer the mini grants. Although if in your proposal you have a different solution, we're open to that.
And a second question, does Prosper Portland have other financial services that cannabis-based businesses would be eligible to apply for under your Access to Capital programs?
There are different opportunities depending on where the business is located and the structure of the business. We do have the Prosperity Initiative Program. The Prosperity Initiative Program, it's a PIP grant, and it's a matching grant for businesses that are within different urban renewal areas around the city. Requirements and priorities for those PIP grants are different depending on the urban renewal area that the business is located in, as well as if the business is open for minors or not. If it's not open to minors, then they're not currently able to access the PIP grant. And I think we're always looking and exploring different ways to be able to support entrepreneurs in the cannabis industry. So,
I have a quick question. Right here.
Oh.
Just after the selection has been made, how long will this IBRN, I think it's called? How long will those services be provided to the recipients of the mini grants?
Yeah, great question. So the way that we've outlined it in the grant is 40 hours of technical assistance, but the support for entrepreneurs doesn't cut off there. I think they have access to a network of support. So if they need more one-on-one advising, or if they're looking for other expertise or business support, then that's available. And I'll say again that it says 40 hours in the RFP. If you have a proposal that goes beyond that or some variation of that, we're open to hearing that. I have a question here. Can the $50,000 be used for my own office space to offer technical assistance to cannabis businesses? No. The $50,000 has to be given to other cannabis businesses.
Question.
Yeah.
Why is it? It is. Okay, I would just on the fact wealth disparity in Oregon. You look at it in terms of racial and ethnic backgrounds and different things like that, and that prevents African Americans from going into business and different ventures of that nature. So, and then here it talks about how the disproportionate criminal cases involving marijuana and different things like that that affected African Americans. I was just wondering, what kind of stuff are you guys doing in terms of it says it's you created the program with restorative justice in mind. So how are the funds being allocated in terms of lineage and different things like that, and how the war on drugs and marijuana arrest and different things like that have affected specific populations of people?
So in the grant application, we're looking to see how the organization or consultant is going to address exactly what you've mentioned, and then award accordingly. We are looking for an organization that can help support folks that have been disproportionately impacted. Does that answer your question, sort of? Yeah.
I really appreciate all of your questions, in particular kind of the bigger picture questions, and just gathering from what you're saying that this is a very small amount of money to fit a very large need and unmet need. And I think you're talking too about, again, where's the equity in that? And so I will just state for this program, and also for Prosper as well, who had, ultimately it was a city and community survey process that helped lead the city to the decision to allocate of that $500,000 that I mentioned, a larger portion, $350,000, to grants that are specific to, I think, on the restorative justice side, to the record clearing piece, as well as the record clearing, record expungement, ancillary charges, as well as workforce development, specifically targeting the communities that we know have been, just looking at the records, are, disproportionately, by and large, there's the correlation with, sort of cannabis charges in African American and Latino communities in particular. And so, again, same with the $350,000. So of this pool, that's still a small amount of money. And I can say it's not, I don't think my phone is going to send me an alert on this, but so City Council is due to adopt the recommended budget. They're actually just deliberating on it right now, and then the final adoption is in early June. And I don't anticipate this to change, but both Commissioner Udaley's office and our office advocated and pushed as hard as we could to try to get that tax revenue extended to deepen this pool of money, since the projected revenues are closer to $3 million. So we pushed really hard to say at least a third, right? This is one of the 3 areas, and this was the area that folks responded to most strongly in terms of just voter support and things that we heard when we were championing this on the ballot. I shouldn't say we, Commissioner Fritz, because I couldn't work on it legally as city staff. In any event, so right now it's at $700,000, so it's a little bit more. I mean, it would double this amount, right? So again, and I know that also I won't speak on behalf of the cannabis program, the city, which focuses on the regulatory side and the licensing. But I know there are some really great staff in that program that recognize the disparities. They know who showed up first for licenses. They know what the representation is and are hearing from folks. I think many of you probably know some of the folks in that program. And so I'm sorry that my counterpart from Commissioner Daley's office isn't here, but I would love to get your contact info if you want to continue that conversation and about, again, how we can continue, with your support to advocate for more financial investment as we move forward. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Thanks, Claire.
I have a question about differentiation. You said that there are some services that cannabis businesses can't access, and I know that having had that experience myself, if there are federal funds that go towards programs, we can't access that. Have you identified areas that specifically cannabis businesses don't have other alternative resources that this specifically would be able to target? I know you don't want to, focus on any particular business, but are there things in terms of criteria where you know that there are existing resources that you could divert people towards versus something that's completely missing that this is hoping to address? Does that question make sense?
I think so.
Okay.
So you're asking for alternative resources
No,
they've been excluded, where cannabis businesses have been excluded.
Yeah, where we are unable to access existing resources so that instead of this being a redundant sort of thing or something that adds to something that is already there, it is truly differentiated where there is not access, like a federal funding program or something like that.
Right. So some organizations receive support through a community development block grant or through the SBA for small business loans. We have organizations within the network that work outside of the federal funding, so they're able to provide support for small businesses. As far as the funding goes for small business loans, we don't have an alternative offering for that. I think as far as I just learned that the Small Business Legal Clinic would potentially be able to provide services if we're able to provide them funding to do so. So that is an area right now where they're not able to, that we might be able to expand. Is that?
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering if you have categories of gaps that exist for cannabis businesses that you're hoping to, are there identified gaps for cannabis businesses that this technical assistance, as a criteria that you're looking for?
So what we heard from the Cannabis Tax Steering Committee and from different community members is that access to small business technical assistance was limited or not there, or access to capital. So I think that's specifically what we're hoping that this program will offer.
I guess I'm wondering within technical assistance, because that's a very broad category, if there are particular things. As
Legal, bookkeeping, is that? Yes.
Yeah.
There are huge gaps there, and we're hoping that the Cannabis Committee will come together and identify ways that we can address that.
Okay.
Nothing here?
Hi, Alex here. So just real quick, with this $50,000, once we've, got a proposal winner selected and everything, probably a good chance that whoever needs this $50,000 assistance, if it's going to be a minority, that there's a good chance it could be a startup. Is there any restrictions on startup companies who are probably going to be starting from scratch, who are going to need help, with the formation of the actual business, the legal assistance and everything from the beginning? Or are you looking for a business that's already kind of up and running a little bit and just needs that additional assistance?
Yeah, I think we're open to a business at any stage, and so just within the proposal to indicate which stage of business you might be working with, because I think there are unique challenges for businesses at those stages. I think you want to also consider what the impact of $5,000 will be for a business at that stage. So if you feel that within your proposal, a $5,000 mini grant to a business will be hugely impactful because you've built the structure around it, then I would say go for it, and just to keep that in mind.
Thank you.
I have a question here. Do you offer scientific clinic testing for product development? Well, interesting question. We don't have a cannabis program in the network yet. We have a food program, though, and we do offer food testing. So if and when this comes online, I think this would be a valid topic of conversation for the Cannabis Committee within the network to provide resources to. I have a question here. Ideally, what kind of goal is the CBD RFP looking to accomplish? And I would reference Appendix A, where we're talking about the 5-year milestone goals for businesses. The Inclusive Business Resource Network is really developed about not just helping people get businesses started, but about helping folks build wealth. And so that's, I think, ideally the goal of the CBD RFP is to help entrepreneurs of color get into the industry and build wealth. Of course, I also recognize that's probably not going to happen in 1 year. So we're just looking for progress towards that goal.
Appendix A was not stapled to your version, so if you're interested,
No,
I have copies.
Thank you.
Oh, question. So can cannabis businesses access the other network? So the Portland State University Business Outreach Program does technical assistance, one-to-one consulting services to small businesses, owners, and entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. Is that something that cannabis businesses can access right now?
Through the Portland State Business Outreach Program, they cannot, but we have other organizations within the network that they can.
Okay.
I wanted to get back to your point that this overall work program came out of a existing cannabis committee that said, this is where we want our resource dollars go. Is there a report that we can review that summarizes their policy recommendations?
Claire, is there a report from?
Yes, I can share a summary report on that committee's work as well as the survey, the summary of the survey as well. Yeah. So I'll share that with Amanda to distribute appropriately. Thank you.
That's great. So we'll include that in the FAQs. That's to follow.
Hey, Amanda.
Hi,
so
James.
Just following up on what I think was the question or the point of the question earlier, was there an identified lack of industry-specific technical assistance among current network partners that's what this grant is looking to serve? Is that what it is?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
A question about the RFP on
Sorry,
page
what was that
9.
one?
RFP.
Oh.
Can I get some clarification in terms of what that means, in terms of all submitted applications will become the property of Prosper Portland? Is that your intellectual property in terms of the program that you create? It now belongs to Portland? Is that what that means?
I think what it means is that as a public agency, something that you submit to us becomes then public record, so can be called in the future from anybody in the community.
Hi, I came in a couple minutes late, so maybe I missed some information.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm still confused about the technical assistance, the definition of that, and what falls under that category. Is there a list that we can probably access that will give us an example of different technical assistant organizations you can be in order to get that grant, or is it more so where you're asking us just to come up with a good idea, and whoever is the most creative applicant will receive the money?
Could be both. So I think as far as business technical assistance, traditionally that falls into probably, I don't know, 4 different categories. If it's helping a business create a business plan, a marketing plan, helping them work through financials, understanding their bookkeeping and accounting. Yeah, and then maybe and hopefully eventually also working on a growth plan for scaling up. Also, I guess included in that would be what we mentioned earlier, where there definitely are gaps, bookkeeping, accounting, and legal support for cannabis businesses.
Great, thank you.
Going back to fine print, are you guys open to modifying this RFP? Because as a business owner, I need access to assistance. So I'm just curious, and that's the reason why I asked, who was in the room that made that actual decision to decide the allocation of $100,000 going towards technical assistance versus $50,000 towards access to capital. Just being on the ground, that's not my need. I don't need that. I need capital.
Yeah.
So are you guys open to having that conversation about maybe modifying the RFP to maybe have a more balanced allocation towards more pots of money going towards the access to capital versus the technical assistance? Because I just can't visualize $100,000 going towards, technical assistance. I just feel like that's being a retail business, I have to charge my customers tax. I just feel like that's a waste of tax money because that's not, my need in terms of being on the ground, being in the trenches.
Sure. So I think you could propose a different maybe allocation of how you would use the money. When we made that separation, when we put $100,000 for technical assistance, we were basing that on what a lot of our organizations submit for what it costs to have one full-time employee, which is right around $100,000. So to be able to provide a person to be able to support a position of a person, to be able to meet with businesses and administer the grants, that's why the allocation fell that way. If you came up with a proposal where you could do it differently, I think we're open to hearing that. It says there's no protection of intellectual property at all, and I think this is referring to the RFP. And so again, because we're a public agency, this is public funds, if you submit a proposal to us, that becomes part of the public record. So in this case, if you were working on a proprietary program and wanted to keep that very top secret, this might not be the funding opportunity that you're looking for.
I have 2 questions. First question is, if an organization was currently working with an existing cannabis company, would that increase their chances of being awarded the grant?
If the organization is currently working with cannabis companies.
Yeah, currently working right now.
Well, I think that would be a good fit for what the RFP is asking for.
Okay, and second question is, where will the information on the cannabis business development program exist once it's up and running?
The information would be on the Prosper Portland website /inclusive biz, where we have right now our 11 partners in the Inclusive Business Resource Network are listed there. So whomever is awarded this grant would be included into the network, and that information would be posted there.
So the information on the mini grants will be available after July 15th, is what you're saying, and it'll exist there?
The information on the, yes, depending on how those mini grants, how it's determined the mini grants will be administered. These were really good questions.
Will this program be something that's available on a on an annual basis, or is it kind of just testing the water, see how it goes? What's the future of the program?
Well, I think it's both. Our hope and intention is to keep this program running, pending funding. And so I think what Claire shared was good news.
Still funding from the tax allocation.
Yeah. And the way that the program is structured right now is a pilot. And so we're going to be learning as we do and understand how to best serve this community.
Okay. And one more question. Could a recipient of a grant apply again for a following year for maybe a different type of business, maybe continuing the same business, et cetera?
I think so. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Great, thank you. Oh, clarification on the website. It's prosperportland.us/biz network, not inclusive biz.
Apply for the same, a different, but I'm asking if, for instance, I qualify for whatever I applied for this year, and the next year, and I still needed that same, would I be able to qualify for it again next year? Or is it just a one-time thing, or like he said, it would have to be something different?
You know, I think as it stands now, you could apply 2 years in a row. And I think, like, depending on how the pilot project works and what we learn, that could potentially change. What's that? Yes, okay. So clarification for me. Are you talking about a business receiving a mini grant or somebody applying for this RFP?
Someone that's applying for it for their business.
For their business, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I imagine there would be opportunities for the same business to apply more than once. And as a pilot program, as it's being developed, that might change. Oh.
I was wondering if the person that receives the technical part of the grant, they could also be the person who, or business that's in the position to help with the distribution of the $50,000 grant as well, correct?
Yes.
Will that technical business be able to be a part of the requirements that'll be set for giving out the mini grants?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I think we have no more questions right now. We'll all be in the room for another 25 minutes. So if you all have something you want to ask, you can come up to us. Otherwise, I think we can conclude. I just want to let you know that we'll be receiving questions until the 21st of May, till 2 p.m. You can submit your questions to me directly on my email, through email, my card's at the table, or you can do it through Twitter or through Slido. We'll keep that open through the 21st. We will issue all the FAQs and any revisions for the RFP May 23rd, 2 p.m. And then again, as it stands today, proposals are due Monday, June 4th. This date might change depending on what comes out if we have to revise the RFP. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for being here today. Oh, yeah, yeah. We can print more RFPs if you didn't get one. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. There's RFPs on the table if you didn't get one. Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.